Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Brainstorm Brewery, the podcast where the deck list always matches the photo. I'm Corbin Hostler. We are Sans DJ this week. We do have a guest, and I think the guest, I can't tell if the guest is trolling me or Jason with the ice cream bowl over there. I'm hearing the silverware noises.
Ice cream? Nah, man, that's a delicious malted beverage being poured. You plebeian.
My bad.
Anyways,
Anyways,
acting like this is the first time I ever poured a beer in the mic.
It was a long pour. It was like 60 seconds before we started. It's still going on. I just got a bottle of water here. Jeez. Anyways,
well, Corbin, when you have something that looks as good as this handsome drinking glass with the Brainstorm Brewery logo on it, that's available to our patrons who give us $20 a month or more at patreon.com/brainstormbrewery. You would want to drink a delicious beverage on the podcast.
If I wasn't sick, I would.
I sent out a round of glasses just last weekend, so get on that train because we are going to be adding the brand new thumbnail logo designed by Proxy Guy onto our next round of glasses. And even the people that got the old glasses, the old bad glasses and the old good glasses, will be eligible to receive the ones with the new logo, which means thousands of dollars in shipping costs and thousands of hours for me. So.
That is true. Anyways, I'm Corbin, that's Jason, and we have a guest tonight, the Pro Tour champion, Jacob Van Lunen, JVL TMS, I believe, or something like that on Twitter, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, yeah. Jake, welcome on. Jake's going to talk Modern with us. Obviously, it's pretty eventful with the Bannings and the Unbannings and everything else. We're going to talk about Vegas.
Don't spoil it. I DVR'd the banning, and I'm going to check it out later.
I got bad news for you, man. Anyways, as you can tell, I barely survived Vegas. This is actually the best I've been able to talk in like 4 days. But yeah, we missed you there, guys. I'll say that. I was able to get in one good night of gambling with the crew, at least.
That's good.
How'd you do?
I did well there. I will tell you when I lost money is going, and I'm not going to name any names here, going out gambling with people who were card counting, and we're like seriously card counting, like know what they're doing card counting, willing to spend a lot of money to do it, sitting down at the $25 minimum table at Caesars and losing my $300 or $400 or whatever I was willing to gamble in the matter of like 15 minutes. That was the rough part of the weekend. All the craps went great.
Corbin's my craps lucky charm. The drunker I got, the more money I won playing craps with Corbin.
Well, look, maybe next GP Vegas we're all going to go for fun, but we do at least have Indy coming up in 2 weeks for those who don't know. We're going to have a party at the venue at Grand Prix Indianapolis. Hopefully I signed the last contract that we need to get signed today, and they were willing to work with us for the catering. We'll see. Either way, there's going to be an event, and hopefully it'll be
catering.
Well, hopefully, man. It was that's that patron money going to hard work, because as it turns out, catering in convention centers is not cheap. But we appreciate it. We're looking forward to having everyone out there. We're going to have drink tickets for patrons. If you're into that, we're going to have Commander. We have giveaways that Wizards of the Coast gave us. Thank you to them. It's being co-hosted by our sponsor, Channel Fireball. CFP events team is helped get us set up at the venue, so you'll be able to just walk from the GP to our event in the same building. It's going to be a lot of fun. So check that out. Always worth going to a GP and, buying all your singles on channelfireball.com, of course. But Jake, why didn't we see you in Vegas? What's your excuse, man?
Oh, I'm having a kid.
Yeah,
My
Jason's
wife's due
excuse.
in
You can't
11
copy
days.
him. You can't. That's Jason's excuse. You can't copy him.
When's she due?
September 8th.
Oh, so there was no way that she would.
I don't know if that's how. I don't know if that's how it works. I think Marianne had been 3 weeks early. It happens.
Well, hey, congratulations. Is this number one?
No, it's number 2.
Oh, you idiot! What are you doing, dude? You have no idea. You forgot how shitty it was to have a kid because you're like, oh, I got like a 2 or 3 year old. They're pretty cool. Let's do this again. And no, man.
Jason, how far are in you now? How old is Soren?
Soren's 3 months.
3 months. So yep, you've got the 3-year-old.
Yeah, you're in like the no sleep zone still.
Yeah, he's actually not that bad. Some nights he'll sleep for like
8-10 hours. It's crazy. But
Oh wow.
some nights he's up
you're
every
lucky.
2. But
Oh come on.
well, the
That
problem
is
is,
pretty good.
if I didn't have my daughter around,
Glass
I
half
could just
empty.
now see 2's worse because like
Yeah.
I could just put him down for a nap and sleep, but I got a 3-year-old to watch, so like having 2 of them, I just like their sleep schedules don't line up, so I just never sleep.
All right, Jason, I'm going to put you on
bad.
blast here for a minute, man.
Why is that?
I know everyone. Jason just called JVL an idiot for having another kid.
Yeah, that was a bad decision.
I'm just saying that I have a little mole. I am a good journalist with sources who told me that at one GP Detroit recently, Jason might have got a little drunk and cried about how much he loves his kids.
What?
I got sources everywhere, man.
Defensible.
So there
Defensible.
you go, everybody listening. Jason has a heart of gold underneath it all.
I have sources that say that Corbin was trying to buy enriched uranium from people in the parking lot of the Twin Pines Mall, and
What is this, an episode of Stranger Things? Is that what you're pitching here?
no, that was Back to the Future.
They were buying uranium?
I think it was plutonium.
Yeah.
Why were they
was
buying
buying- he was
plutonium?
buying,
He was buying something from, like,
the Libyans.
Some, like,
Okay, but I've never actually... I
yeah.
guess I've never put this together. Why would they need plutonium? Like, I thought it was just a random,
For the
like...
flux capacitor in the
yeah,
DeLorean.
exactly. In order to make the time machine like work.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like
Because
it's a
missing.
critical
Libyans
component.
have enriched
Yeah, yeah.
uranium, or is that how it goes in the 80s or whatever?
I think the Libyans were willing to come off the summer. I think that's what it was.
Yeah. And there was the whole like machine gun battle.
I won't lie, I
There's a
never
whole
knew
thing.
that was part of the plot of the movie. I just thought that was their excuse for how the movie started.
Well, when there's a sexual assault and a dude trying to bang his mom, you sort of forget about
Right.
like the casual racism
And flying
you move on
cars.
to the the flying cars are pretty rad.
Well, good to know. So I guess I'm the only one who can talk about Vegas because DJ is still on his way back. Briefly, Vegas was a lot of fun. The Command Zone party was insane. This was the crazy part to me. There were 1,800 people.
That people paid $80 to play casual.
It was sick.
Commander for
I
no
think
prizes?
it was. Well, look, I think it was no. So there was. This is what I was going to talk about. There was the Command Zone at the event. It was, you bought your thing for it. It gave you the dedicated play space or whatever. They had more than 1,000 people sign up for that. 1,800 people signed up for the main event. More than 1,000 people signed up just to have their space to play Commander and get the the promo Soul Ring and all of that. And then the Commander party on the Command Zone party on Friday night was crazy as well, where for price of admission you got one of the pre-cons and you got to do, there was a panel or a Q&A or something. Gavin Verhey was there, all the big content creators were there. It was great, but I think it really talks a lot about what Magic in 2019 is, where you have almost as many people there for Commander as you do to play in the biggest GP of the year.
Well, I mean, people don't go to Vegas for the GP.
Yep. Well, I mean, but they used to, right? And that's the whole thing, They used to be all you
Yeah.
did.
Well, it's more of like the competitive side of things is becoming more spectator driven, and the people are playing like more like there's more casual stuff happening at big events in big ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, I mean,
it's
the Magic
yeah.
Fest is supposed to be, right? But I mean,
Yeah,
think
it's
back
good.
to GP Vegas 1 and 2, they were trying to break, GP Vegas 1 was what GP Vegas 1 was, which was, this podcast road tripping across the country and attendance just going up day after day and Wizards flying in every scorekeeper from across the world and L3 across the world they could find just to try to run the event. Nick Fong, scorekeeper extraordinaire, basically hacking Wizards event reporter to figure out how to run a tournament with 6,000 people. Like, it was just insane.
Neil Oliver winning.
1,800 people dropping this second they open their sealed pool.
Kibler registering 40 basic lands so he could get his appearance fee. That was a good one because he was called for a feature match. His deck list was. I wasn't even on coverage then. I was playing that GP and I went X2-1 as close as I've ever got to the Pro Tour.
Would you win like $400?
I won $500. But here's the thing.
For $500.
No. It's about the pro points because now whenever anyone says who's the best player in the store, I can point to my pro points and say it's me, even though it's like clearly not anymore.
I have a pro point.
Well, okay, I lied. They're meaningless.
Exactly.
Jake, you're not allowed
Yeah, I
to
have
chime
pro
in.
points.
You're not allowed to chime
Yeah,
in.
Do you have any pro points, Pro Tour
Yeah, I
winning?
got some. Yeah,
I have exactly one.
yeah.
Also, there was a lot of Hogak, as it turns out.
This card's good.
I did my best to avoid it, but I was going for like on day one, I was going for like a GP Nogak sort of thing, but I just couldn't. It was too much of the field. And day two was just a disaster.
I'm very happy it's gone.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to all of that. They've unleashed the Ferocidon on standard. That's what everyone really wants to talk about, right? But we're gonna get to modern. We're gonna get
Just
to
in time.
that vintage happened as well.
I saw them say. I saw people say, "Unban Rampaging Ferocidon, you cowards." So
Yes.
now I've started saying, "Unban Green Sun Zenith, you cowards," and maybe that'll work.
I don't know about that one, but before we get there, let's talk Breaking Bulk. Sing the song.
Breaking bulk time. Breaking bulk time. Break.
Oh, yeah, Breaking Bulk. There's so much good stuff.
It's a pick. Breaking bulk. The end.
It's just playing automatically.
No, I was talking to the person who sings the song, the automatic song.
Oh, okay.
All right, I've got an easy one, I think, maybe for you. But this seems like the right time because this set is about to be
We want to
disappeared.
talk about what this game is.
Oh, sure.
I
Yeah.
feel like
Good
even
point.
some of the cast members forget. What we do is we try to say stuff that we think you're gonna find in bulk that isn't bulk, like stuff that people overlook,
Including yourself.
Yeah, and maybe go back through your bulk, or maybe something changed this week, and like this is definitely a bulk. Go yank this out and buy list it for $1. So it's just stuff that like is not bulk. The bulk rate is like 0.4 cents, and where some of the stuff is like 50 times the bulk rate, and you're like, oh, I'm glad I didn't bulk that out. So. That's what this segment is, and we are going to try to guess what the card the person's thinking of. All right.
Modern.
I have the assumption that sometimes we'll get new listeners, and I'm probably
No, I mean you're right. Look, we're sponsored by our amazing sponsor channel Fireball now. So we've got all the listeners from that. I hope, maybe, fingers crossed. Watch us on YouTube. Anyway, so I've got a Modern Horizons multicolored uncommon. Go.
multicolored.
Yeah, I think there's only one.
Is it Soul Herder?
It is Soul Herder. I mean, it's basically, I think, like I said, basically it's like Soul Hoarder and Tribute Major, the only non-talisman uncommons really worth anything that you might not know.
That unicorn seems really good, but nobody's really done anything with it yet.
Which one?
Oh, it's like the one where the creature comes into play, gets a 1/1 counter.
Oh, yeah. So there's also, I mean, obviously Astrolabe is the one everyone knows, like Generous Gift, The Beast Within, Scale Up, or Infect, all the talismans are preview cards. But yeah, right below those, Soul Hoarder, and I say Soul Hoarder specifically, not only is it a cool card, for those who don't know, it's the 1/1 blue-white and a generic card that whenever creature's exiled from the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on your Soul Hoarder. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile a creature you control, then return it to play. So modern Soul Herder is a real deck that is starting to put up results in a lot of places. So, this is very powerful. They also printed Ephemerate, which, I mean, heck, is probably going to be a breaking bulk in its own right.
I think it's Ephemerate.
I don't really know, man.
I think it's a verb.
YouTube comments knocked me for getting Fiery Islet wrong last week.
Did you say Islet?
No, I said Islet. It's actually pronounced Islet.
There you go. Should have said Islet.
Yeah, but Ephemerate, or Ephemerate, if you will, along with Soul Herder, is creating just basically a Bant Company deck, more or less, in Modern. That's very good. And who knows what Modern's going to happen now, but if it's a deck at all, that's going to be a $1, $2 uncommon before very long, in 6 months, a year, because despite the fact you can actually buy Modern Horizons right now, it's still available from distributors. No one's going to. No one is. And as soon as Throne of Eldraine hits, really no one's going to. So get this while you can.
Got a $100 Ren and 6 in there.
I'm buying a case. Like we just placed an order with the store for a case that I'm just going to keep. So I have it because the set's just that. I mean, it's just nuts.
Well, I mean, I feel the same way about Battle Bond. My pick of the week is Battle Bond.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
I feel like people just sort of slept on that, but like it's got legacy cards, it's got EDH cards.
Yeah.
Battle Bond's nuts.
All right, Jason, what do you got?
I have a card from Scourge.
Ooh, Scourge.
It is a blue uncommon creature.
No one knows
What am I
what's in
doing?
that
You're
set.
never going to get this. DJ would get this.
Careful researcher. What do you call hapless researcher?
That's common and from Judgment. But other than that, you nailed it.
Wait, Jake. Do you know what's in Scourge?
I'm trying to think of blue uncommons and Scourge.
I'm just trying to think of a single card in Scourge.
So there was Storm. There was cards like Wing Shards, and there was like Zombie Cutthroat.
Okay, hold up.
There was Morph and Storm as mechanics.
All of these, it's
Yeah, like
a
I don't think he's talking about
pedo
Willbender,
thing, right?
That's
That's
from
a cycle.
Onslaught.
That's a cycle that I've always
talking
pulled out
about
of
I'll just give it to you guys because you could it's on the basis of the Kadena deck, basically a Feto Runecaster, which says whenever a creature's turn face up, draw a card.
That's how you pronounce that?
Yeah.
There's like wow, this card's, I'm looking it up now. This card's expensive. I actually...
Yeah, and it's still in bulk because it was, bulk before.
Yeah, Undead War Chief is the other big one from this set. I knew there were cards I picked from this set. Isn't there a whole cycle of like Affeto cards or whatever that are worth picking, or is it just the one?
Could be. I don't really know.
I could be wrong, I guess. I just know I've looked I didn't know how to pronounce that word, and I've looked it up before because something of it was a pick. Oh yeah, Affeto Alchemist also from Onslaught.
Oh yeah, the wizard.
Yeah,
the guy with.
That would have been the one that I've picked before because it was a wizard.
I think that was that went up in 2017 on the basis of the wizard deck because everyone thought they were going to be tapping and untapping wizards just because patron wizard and the. Funny aside, like the cat deck from 2017 is like $150 on eBay, and the wizard one's like $45. So. The casual players got their last laugh at the spikes.
That's just a function of the cards that become worth the most, right? That's basically how all that works out.
Partially, yeah. I mean, Mary's worth more than the whole Wizards deck.
Yeah. Well, that had Kess in it, right? And they reprinted Kess.
Yeah. It had nothing.
Yeah.
It had like Kess, and Maricel was bad, and I don't even remember the other wizard.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, oh, Wonderwine Prophet it's an infinite combo. Wonderwine Prophet's $30. Okay.
Well, I've seen that once or twice. I mean, that's a real thing to do. I've seen that once or twice.
Have you seen it since 2017?
Well, it got bought out to 10, not 30. It was $10.
I feel like I have many of those.
Yeah, this game was made for you.
Drawers.
This game was made for people like you, buddy. Just let me come to your house, clean out your house, and we'll make a bunch of money. God. How about that?
You could afford to have a second kid.
This man's having to pay in his hospital bill with Wonderwine profits.
Oh man,
with the Wonderwine profits,
I do have some. I have a lot of high end stuff I'm going to sell in the coming week. I will. So maybe I'll talk to you about it ahead of time.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, we all have stores.
Yeah, nice. Last night was a trip for me, actually. I got back from Vegas, and we were moving stuff from a location we had bought out to our store. And we had to get out, basically, last night. We'd rented a U-Haul and everything. And then I get home, I come home, I do dinner with the family, and then we get tornadoed in the middle of August, end of August.
Tornado-owned.
We actually got tornadoed last night. There were 2 tornadoes on the ground. In the city or near the city, one pretty close to my store. And then the tornado had picked up by the time the storm got to my house, 10 minutes, 15 minutes later. But the same cell that had produced the tornado was throwing out 80 to 100 mile per hour winds. And
that's not good for moving magic cards.
It's not good for moving, nor is it good for getting out of my house.
Yeah,
our power obviously went out, but it was apocalyptic when I stepped outside because there were giant trees, that obviously are, 20, 30-year-old trees or whatever, just split, just lying on people's cars and on people's houses. So I eventually was able to very slowly, after moving a bunch of branches off of my driveway and off of my car, we didn't have any giant trees. So, we didn't get any major damage. There were some shingles on the ground. So I think our roof may be screwed. We'll see. But, yeah, then I tried to.
Sucks. Roofs are expensive, man.
Then I tried to get out to the store, and I had to. It took me 3 different routes because of flooding. I hit giant either police blocked off areas of road or roads that I wasn't willing to try to pass. So yeah, it was just a trip. I started the day in Vegas, where it was 100 billion degrees. I came home where it was 115 degree heat index, and then it tornadoed me. So that was fun.
So that sounds miserable. It has been in between 70 and 75 degrees here, for 4 days straight.
Yeah, must be
I've
nice.
gone to the Arboretum twice. I went to a couple parks.
Where do you live, for
Went
everyone who doesn't
swimming.
know, with this perfect
New
weather?
Jersey.
Oh,
New
Yeah,
Jersey
man,
is
dox
the
yourself.
greatest place in the entire world.
As long as
The
you don't-
Garden State.
yeah, as long as you don't want to ever go across the bridge, right? Isn't that the thing? That's the only thing I know about New Jersey, is that the governor shut down a bridge. And the whole state stopped working.
Oh, that was a Chris Christie joke. I thought it was a going to New York City joke.
No, it was a Chris
No,
Christie
it was
joke.
he coordinated. Well, we don't know that Chris Christie had
But he
anything
did.
to do with it.
But he did.
Well, no, not necessarily. People were punished for it, but he was not. But he was, some people say he was implicated. I'm not a big Chris Christie
He was
fan,
photographed
but at the same
at
time,
a beach that it shouldn't have been accessible to him at the same time. I remember that was a thing.
He shut down
No. The beach photograph was on a weekend when all the New Jersey state parks that were along the coast were closed because he didn't
different
approve
scandal.
funding for them. Yeah, he didn't approve funding for the state parks. So there were all these beaches that were closed that weekend. And on that weekend that all the beaches were closed, there were all these photos taken of him
I see.
on the beach.
Well, there you go, everybody. You didn't know this
Yeah,
was
yeah.
going to be a history of political scandals
Yeah,
in New Jersey.
It's just
Yeah, it's not
episode.
really like a scandal even. People are just like, man,
Chris.
That guy.
I don't care for that guy.
come on. That's ridiculous.
All right, so
Rub it in our faces.
let's talk about the other thing that happened this week. The big news: the rampaging Ferocidon unban. No more tokens in standard. Also, Stoneforge Mystic was unbanned. And Faithless
That's a big
Looting is
deal.
gone.
The justification in the rampaging Ferocidon section of the article was so patronizing. It's like, red sucks so bad this won't even help.
It was pretty funny. It's just a nice meme that it's legal a month before it rotates.
Yeah, it might be okay in best of one, so it's banned there still.
Yeah, it's funny that it's banned there
Suck it,
because
Red Mage.
yeah, that's interesting because it doesn't need to be banned at all. The card is not
It
broken.
doesn't need to be banned at
It
all.
was just the safe unban for them at the time, because
it's a
it
super
stopped the
safe
life
unban.
game.
It was a super weird ban to begin with.
Yeah,
honestly,
it was.
in my opinion, when I saw that banning on,
Well,
I
it
was
was
like,
that.
what?
It was basically
why?
that.
That's there have been so many vastly more powerful cards that
It
have
was
not
that
gotten
or
banned
that
over
or
the years.
Hazaret at the time, right? But the idea was if they stopped the life gain, at least you could play your hidden stockpile decks or whatever to gain life against the red decks. But it was so weird because it was also, for those who don't remember this or whatever, they banned all the Marvel or not Marvel, the rest of the Teamer Energy cards. Where this was banning number 4 of that year, but at the same time banned Ferocidon because red would be too good after the Teamer cards were banned. It was a weird period in Magic history.
Yeah, man, it was just weird. The Ferocidon ban was weird. It was super weird.
Maybe
man.
they'll learn one day not to make purple mana.
Yeah.
When has purple mana ever been okay?
Dude, so okay, at the panels at GP Vegas, somebody got up and asked and said, when you all revealed the art to the promo Soul Ring at a GP a few months ago, you also accidentally revealed purple on the card back. So I just was wondering, when the 6th color does come out in Magic, what will it be like? What can you tell us about it? And the designer, the people on the panel were like, "What are you talking about?" And then Gavin Verhey was very, very good at handling the PR and thinking on his basically dealing with all types of people on his feet. Actually knew what the guy was talking about. I was like, yeah, that was just a screw up by the graphics guy. Which it is. Somebody on the team just
He didn't mean
grabbed
to
an
put
image
Donald
off of Google.
Trump as a Russian puppet on the back of a Magic card and have him stand in front of it.
That's exactly, yeah, somebody got fired over that. Fortunately, nobody got fired over grabbing the
Purple
wrong
dot.
image off of Google for
Yeah.
that. It was pretty funny.
A purple circle.
Yep. But yeah, okay, so let's talk about it. Hogak banned, we knew that needed to happen. Faithless Looting ban. Personally, I've been on that train for a
Whoa.
while.
Yeah,
what do you
but
think?
I feel like I'm super happy with the Faithless Looting ban. I feel like that. I feel like the card is too powerful for what you want it to be. I think there are tons and tons of decks that were just pushed out of the format entirely that are viable now. I think that the fact that it's gone means that like you don't have to like completely overload on graveyard hate and then pick like one other sort of thing to sideboard against. You know, like
that is kind of how
it
it
just
works.
like it changes the format like just drastically. I think that it's weird that they kept things like Ancient Stirrings.
Yeah.
But like I'm for it. I'm like as long as they're mixing it up a little bit.
Well, it seems like, people talked about the pillars of the format before being Faithless Looting, Ancient Stirrings, and Mox Opal. Oftentimes, Stirrings and Opal going together. But then they unbanned Stoneforge, and I think we might have new pillars of the format being Stoneforge, Mox Opal, and Ancient Stirrings. Or Renin. That's actually probably not true. It's probably like Ancient Stirrings and Mox Opal are very similar, but it's probably like Ancient Stirrings, Renin 6, and Stoneforge.
And Ren 6 is very good. I don't know if it's quite like pillar of the format good.
Renin
I think
6
like
is a mistake.
The number of them that exist versus the how much people are going to want it. There's that card's going to be hard to find. But
now Renin 6 was in high demand. It was more expensive than like even I think you recognized. It's very expensive now. Do you think that this banning makes Renin 6 more in demand, and should people who have been on the fence waiting for it to potentially drop, do you think this is a good time to pick them up?
Probably. I mean, it's when you think about it, like suddenly Jund, like instead of having like all these weird niche decks that beat it, Jund is basically good against everything that's not Tron, right? And then now like you get to play with Renin 6, and it's just like this absurdly powerful card in the deck.
I'll tell you where we're going right now is Renin 6. It's going to be Renin 6 Stoneforge. Whether that's Jund playing white, which it has done in the past for Lingering Souls, and now it's even easier with Renin 6 returning fetch lands to your hand and so on. You're not going to get color screwed as much. Or if people just find some way to play Naya, or if it's just simply the blue white decks or whatever. But I think Renin 6, the combination of Stoneforge and Batterskull against aggro decks, plus Renin 6 just against X1s, like why would you ever bring a Birds of Paradise to a Magic tournament anymore?
Yeah, I mean, fast creature decks just get like vastly worse, right? Because now there's like Renin 6 is way better, Stoneforge Mystic is like a thing, and Plague Engineer is suddenly like a card that's like legitimately good, as opposed to like this like thing that I hope I can fit a couple in my sideboard kind of thing, like.
Yeah,
so
I'm trying to be.
So do you think Noble Hierarch gets lots worse then?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think all aggressive creature decks in general get
humans
vastly worse. I think humans gets worse.
Yeah,
well,
humans. This is the people haven't noticed this because it's all been Hogak or whatever. Humans is beginning to push out of the format for a while, and if humans is bad, that is a terrible sign for any other deck that is even similar to humans in the way it plays out. And I'm not just talking about Merfolk here. I'm talking about
talking all Vile decks?
I'm talking about your Abs and Company decks. I'm talking about your Bant Company decks. I'm talking about your Naya Zoo decks. All these things that they're like fringe things or whatever. But now,
they all get way worse.
Like you just don't even you can't even play them anymore.
Yeah, and it sucks too because like Elves is really fun.
Yeah, but, like these were all decks that helped make Modern diverse, and. A lot. It's not just Stoneforge. It's Renin 6 too. Renin 6 is egregious.
So I'm not gonna say that those decks are like dead, because those decks are like obviously like not good. Like obviously Renin 6 and Stoneforge Mystic are both like nightmare cards for those decks, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like there are gonna be tons of like other decks in the format too that people are playing that maybe are like good against the mid-rangey decks. Like like Tron might be like a place where like an aggressive creature strategy should. I don't know.
This isn't making Modern sound better though, right? Like if everyone's playing Tron to beat Jund and you can't play a creature deck because of Jund or whatever, or blue-white control, like in their reasoning they said they are unbanning it so that people will play more to the board. But like Stoneforge doesn't encourage you to play to the board. It encourages you to play Stoneforge or play a deck that doesn't care about Stoneforge. And anything in the middle becomes very difficult to play. So
Yeah, I think that while there's some truth to that, I think that the time you'll have afforded yourself and the fact that like you aren't like brainstorming to perfect cards or like putting stuff away. I think that Stoneforge is a card that it's not going to be like oppressive. It's like very good, right? But there's like
right.
a big number of games where an aggro deck just like bolts it, right? And then the Batterskull sits in the opponent's hand and they die.
Yeah, it's not it's not a I don't think it's a problem of this is like what ultimately my stance on it boils down to and what it's always been is that I don't think it's a power level problem. I do think it's a deck diversity problem. And if you go back and read what they said about Splinter Twin when they banned it, it was you didn't have a deck that was Splinter Twin. You had 5 different decks that used the 9 cards, like 7 card, whatever it was, 9 card Splinter Twin, 10 card Splinter Twin package of your Exarchs. It was like 4 Exarchs, 4 Twin, 2 Pestermite. And you had a bunch of different decks that used that 10 card package to win the game or whatever, because it was just better than everything else. And they banned it and they said, in the interest of competitive diversity, Splinter Twin is banned. And like, that's basically what Stoneforge is. It's not like you're not just going to have Stoneforge decks. You're going to have 5 to 10 different decks that all just now get to play Stoneforge, Batterskull, and Sword of their choice.
Yeah, I mean it's like 25 decks that are at least like tier 2 that like are playing Stoneforge.
Yeah, so it's
next week. Yeah,
it decreases diversity, and so it's like I just don't know what the upside is.
I don't know though, because I think all of those decks are very different, and I feel like
and now they're not going to be.
Is like
and now they're not going to be. They're going to be Stoneforge decks.
Yeah, they're going to be Stoneforge decks, but they're just like way different decks that just all happen to be playing Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, I think that's a problem, right? That's my point. Is that now playing against all of those decks is going to feel very similar because every single one of them requires the have an answer to Stoneforge Batterskull plan. That's all there. It homogenizes the decks in a way that was not necessarily true before.
I mean, there are a lot of cool things that happen that like we didn't get a chance to see before. I think in Modern, like I think Wilderness Reclamation is a card that could do something. I think like Karn the Great Creator is a card that I think hasn't really seen its time of day yet. That could get really, really good. I think that I think there's a lot to be discovered. Also, I think that. Like Modern has like a deep enough card pool where like, yeah, there are going to be like a ton of Stoneforge Mystic decks, but they're also just going to be like a ton of other decks that like could have previously not existed because Faithless Looting was just like better than whatever it is they did,
Yeah, I wish that we had a chance to see what the format looked like with Hogak and Looting gone without Stoneforge in it. But I think they knew that after banning Bridge, that not being enough, banning Hogak, sure, but then banning a card that hit another handful of decks, like they knew they needed to give something back so that it wasn't just all negative to people. It wasn't just up taking things away. They gave something back to make people feel better. So
I think also it might be like it kind of gives them like an I told you so door in the future, right? If that does happen, if it does become too homogenous in terms of like.
Yeah, that's true, too.
The threats people
See,
play
we told you we
like,
shouldn't have Stoneforge in the format, and you all said it'd be fine.
Yeah, we listened to you.
Yeah, and like, and for what it's worth, like they unbanned Jace, and
it was fine.
It was fine.
But it's so weird, though.
First of all, Jace is like suddenly like a card to kind of watch too, right?
Well, and that's
well, it's not just Jace. They unbanned Bitter Blossom. They're like, oh, we can't ever unban Bitter Blossom or Wild Nicatl. Like,
well, no one ever thought they couldn't unban Nicatl, but look, yeah, I mean, it's just interesting though because it was like 3 months ago they wrote that second to whatever the deck was at the time, Blue-White Controlled had the most GP top 8s, and that was their reasoning for not unbanning Stoneforge Mystic. And now they've basically reset us to that metagame. And they've unbanned Stoneforge Mystic after saying they, it just doesn't really make sense with everything they had outlined before. So I'm not trying to, tinfoil hat conspiracy here, but it really just felt like they knew that if they were going to take a step like banning Faithless Looting, they needed to give players something to get excited about, or they were just going to feel like they had something taken away for no good reason. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, all that said, I actually like playing Stoneforge. I like to play Stoneforge decks a lot. Like, that sort of mid-rangey white creature decks are things I enjoy playing. So, I don't know that it's, bad for the metagame. It just doesn't make a lot of sense with their previous stances on the function of the ban list. And they've been pretty inconsistent with the ban list. Yeah.
Yeah, and bans, they've been more aggressive with bans in the last few years. I mean, the Hogak bans, I think, were absolutely necessary. Like, all of them.
Yeah.
Hogak just made Modern no fun to play.
Yeah,
It just became really stupid. I think that, and for what it's worth, I don't think it's necessarily true that everything's either got to be like this or this, like either not care about the Stoneforge Mystic or like be on the train type of thing. I think that, like Death Shadow decks, I think are like real big winners here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember. The Grixis Death Shadow decks never really playing Faithless Looting, right? And the Mardu decks didn't either. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, most versions of I can think of very few versions of Death Shadow decks that have played.
Yeah, because Mardu Pyromancers played looting, and they've gotten a lot worse. But Mardu Death Shadow's been the best performing Death Shadow deck for a while, and yeah, it seems like it probably does pretty well.
And I think that there are other Death Shadow decks too that get good. Like, I think that Faithless Looting as a card is just it's like the last card you want to see because it's interacting like
I'm seeing it as like a two of max,
right?
In Mardu Death Shadow.
Okay, yeah. So like maybe they played it for value, but it wasn't. It wasn't like a pillar of the deck.
And I'm more even thinking like just Jund Shadow, like Teamer battle raging people in the face, because like you have to think about the fact that again, people are going to be playing on the board. Like, that's true. That's going to be happening. And, like, you play against a non-Tron opponent, like, you kill people so fast. And you're, like, casting, like, 2 or 3 discard spells in the first few turns of the game. Like, some versions, so you're, like, backing that up with Stubborn Denial. I don't know. Like, that deck seems really strong to me.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good point. Also, that's a deck that can fairly safely ignore Wrenn and 6's pingers, right? You just play your 5/5 on turn 2 instead.
Yeah, 5/5s are good.
Anything else in Modern that you think is worth mentioning here? Like, it's hard for us to talk financially too much about it, right? Besides, like, Preacher deck.
So you're saying Maverick is still bad?
Well, Maverick...
Because it runs birds and Hierarch.
Yes.
Well, I think the go-to for Stoneforge, like, in the beginning, like, if you really want it to be, like, a Stoneforge deck, I think, like, the black-white deck's super obvious, right? You have, like, Thoughtseize Inquisition, Liliana, Stoneforge, Lingering Souls.
And that deck has been...
whatever.
That deck has been kind of under the radar, putting up results for, like, I'll say years, but, like, the last year especially. Like, it'll occasionally make a deep run on day 2 of a GP or something. Just basically black-white good stuff / control, whatever you want to say it.
And Stoneforge is a pretty good thing to put into, like, a good stuff.
Yeah.
Thoughtseize Inquisition deck. And then just, like blue-white, I think is, I think Little Teferi Time Raveler gets way better in Modern now that, you don't have to worry about like everybody trying to kill you like immediately. And the fact that, people are going to be disincentivized from playing like really aggressive decks and they're going to be oftentimes more mid-rangey.
Yeah.
Or just Tron. I'm just so worried that Tron is just going to be like this like oppressive force in the new.
Well, I'd like to
format.
think that we have enough things to combat Tron. Like Field of Ruin was huge. I think Field of Ruin changed that matchup for blue-white control decks. Like now Jund with Ren, like that was always a nightmare matchup for Jund, and it probably still is. I guess Wrenn and 6 allows them to loop Ghost Quarters or Field of Ruins of their own. There's whatever, Alpine Moon, Blood Moon, or Blood Sun. Like there are more options at least, so we'll see. I guess.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's also easier to play more hate
be
against that type of deck when you don't need like 6 graveyard cards.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Because you did need that. Like Mardu Pyromancer was running Surgical Main.
Yeah. Yeah. Also,
like when people are running Graveyard Hate, and I get it. It's a Death Shadow deck, so like why not pay the 2? But still, it's a little excessive.
Well, it got to the point where like some
People are
number.
playing Surgical Main and Thing decks.
Yeah,
like
that's
in
it.
like blue-red Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like some number of decks were just playing Leylines main because they could. But yeah, I mean, on a financial note, obviously we talked about getting rid of that stuff, I think, before. But with the Faithless looting ban, also dump Yark like Phoenixes now if you can get a good price on them, because that card's kind of dead in Modern without looting.
I don't think it's dead in Modern without looting.
Is it
fair.
Phoenix?
It's a powerful enough card where like there's any number of things that could happen, but I mean there's no way it's going to maintain value over the long run. So
Yeah, I mean,
like if you
is
can
it
move them
Phoenix?
at a similar price.
Is it Phoenix win rate fell off a cliff this summer? And yeah, obviously a lot of that was people either knowing how to play against the deck and obviously the rise of Hogak and etc. But Is It Phoenix hasn't had a good GP on win rates in a very long time, and its best card just got banned.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I say Phoenix is dead from a financial standpoint. Whether or not the card finds a way to come back into the format at some point in the future, sure. But
yeah, I just think there's like there's an inevitable thing that at some point that card will be good enough to play in some deck.
That's a good way.
But I'm not saying it's. But no, I'm not saying like hold on to them or anything.
All right,
I just thought dead was a strong word.
I mean, Vintage happened too, a bunch of restrictions. I assume no one cares about that. I don't know anything about it.
Mystic Forge being restricted, that hurts it a little bit, but
doesn't matter.
Perhaps, but yeah, I don't think Vintage moves the needle too much because, like, unless it's like a really old card or a super rare foil, Vintage doesn't really matter that much. But
right. Mm-hmm.
Somebody was speculating on Reddit that perhaps it could be a signal. Any card that's like good enough to get restricted in Vintage is probably worth exploring in other formats. But
that card is pretty silly. I mean, like
Kadena, you can play more stuff off the top.
Yeah,
stuff like that. Like Mystic Forge is just good. People were playing, like I was putting up results on like no practice, just playing a Ravager Affinity deck with explosive research or whatever, that red card that lets you play stuff off the top, and this is like way better.
Experimental Frenzy.
Experimental Frenzy, yeah.
Yeah, so, this is definitely better. We also had a Dice Factory deck. That's my favorite. That's one of my favorite deck names. But Dice Factory go late on day 2 of the
rip
GP.
Whammies off the top, like it's just very good. So I don't think Vintage had anything to do with it. I think the card's real, and the fact that it's gone from like $1 to $4 sort of bears that out. So
yeah, I
don't think that matters. I just think it just goes to show that how good that was and how it just made shop decks just super unfair.
Yeah, and I mean, I know people like to play old cards, but it turns out you're supposed to use deck lists from now on. That's probably a good idea. That's the
second time you've referenced that.
That's because it was a big deal over the weekend, man. Like
it was a big deal.
Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I don't like I
that story
heard
just
about what
so
happened,
insane.
but like I don't know what it was like to be there. That might be something interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, and I was like there when they, I was in the meeting where they brought all the players back. And for those who don't know, and this just makes me sad on sort of the reason why I brought it up is because it kind of matters to me, right? Just in the historical perspective of Magic. Weissman, the creator of a deck so good at the time, it was just called The Deck, and it's still called The Deck in the early days of Magic, played at the old school event where the typical convention for those casual events is that people take a picture of their deck because they want to show off all the old cards instead of using deck lists, and that's your deck list. Well, he had one of his opponents took a photo of his deck after they beat him, and he had 2 circles of protection red on the table against his mono red opponent, and then his winner's deck list when he won the event, shocker, only had 1 circle protection red in it. And then he refused to, he didn't admit it. He came up with some weird excuse, blah, 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 but still gave the trophy back. So then they replayed the top 8, and we actually got to stream the finals of it, which was kind of neat. But your name is down in Magic history. You're at an event where there are just tens of thousands of people coming through the doors, and you occupy a very unique spot in like just the history of this game, and you decide to cheat over 650 prize ticks. Like, yeah,
and an unsanctioned.
On.
Yeah. And he like didn't tweet anything for 2 hours, and when he finally did after 2 hours, his excuse was sort of like, "Nah, it was counter intel."
Yeah, it was just like, it was obviously everybody and their dog made the, oh, it's so 90s to cheat joke or whatever. But even his defense was like basically rules lawyering it, which was the real throwback.
It was like the most 90s defense of all
Yeah,
time.
exactly. It's not technically against the rules, so gotcha. Like, that to me was more than, that to me, like, epitomized 90s magic more than just the cheating. Is cheating...
My back hurts. I need to sit up on the back of the chair.
Yeah, that's that. So, all right, moving on from the 60 card formats. Commander 2019 is out. It went crazy at my store. We ordered our max allocation, which I think was 128 decks, and we sold 115 of them in the first day. So I'd say this set was...
That's what everyone's saying. It's going gangbusters, and these decks they're so bad. The set sucks.
This is not how we get a preview for next year's Commander set, Jason.
Oh, well, next year's Commander set, if it's as much worse than 2018, when everyone was like, Commander 2018 sucks, they're like, don't worry, we heard your concerns. And we decided that we were so mad that everyone complained last year. It was like, hey, let's build around mechanics. And they're like, well, if you build around mechanics, doesn't that sort of constrain the card pool to the point where, like, no, we're not finished. We're going to build around shitty mechanics. You remember Madness? Yeah, it's card disadvantage. It's great. Well,
I love
you can just
Madness.
discard your whole deck.
Madness is
Do you know
cool.
what a Strength of Lunacy does? Because you're about to. Because if you have enough Madness cards in the deck, you're going to need to play a card that lets you give a creature +2/+1. So now you're
all right.
playing
So Jason, just to clarify though, your complaint isn't the monetary value so much, right? Or which is it?
That's
like,
a
let's
completely
clarify.
separate rant where like every card is $3, and if you wait 3 years, some of them will go back up to $3.
Okay,
Like,
so you're not even just talking about not just the financial stuff here. You just think the decks are not good or fun.
I think it was. I think that as someone who writes finance articles, is on a finance podcast, writes finance articles about EDH, writes about EDH, plays EDH. There were about 5 different axes on which they could have made me happy, and if any one of them had hit, I'd been like, "Wow, this set's pretty good." They failed in every possible way to make a set I actually like. There were no decent reprints. The mechanics they built around were terrible. The new cards aren't that exciting. There's 16 commanders. I like one of them. Like, I don't know if I'm old and jaded or what, but like,
you are old.
Who is this for?
You also haven't
it's for
slept
new players.
in 3.
I think they're shifting away. They're shifting away from making the commander stuff for enfranchised players, which I guess is fine.
When were they ever doing that?
Yeah.
When though? Like, when were these products ever designed?
2018 had stuff for enfranchised players. Like, I really like they're getting more people into EDH with this product, and that's fine. If they're going to continue to put good commanders and core sets and stuff like that, I don't care if this product isn't for me. I'll save $200 a year or whatever on this stuff. You know, it's fine. But I don't think you jack the price and make the reprints worse at the same time you're making really uninspired decks.
To be fair, they didn't jack the price. There's no longer MSRP. Like they did last year, yeah, but like there's no longer MSRP. I think we sold ours at 40. Other stores were at 50 or 60. So like we're actually like at least at my store we were back to the MSRP of 2 years ago, right? Because weren't they 40 and then they raised them to 45? Or was it? Yeah. So
imagine charging $60.
Yeah.
For a deck with $38 worth of cards in it.
But then when you give them all 4 for 200, it's a deal.
I mean, I guess I just
like I said, we charged a fair price and sold out.
We took your advice. You know, everybody. I was really like, yes, they listened. They know that they made a misstep, and it's not their fault. They didn't know that the price was going to go up by $5. Whatever people paid was going to go up. They didn't know that. So now that they know, they're going to make it worth it, and they didn't. They didn't do anything to make anybody happy, and I'm glad they're selling, and I'm glad that people are going to buy these. They're going to take them out of the box and they're going to play them against each other, and they're going to be like, oh shit, I like EDH, because these decks are really bad except when you play them against each other. If you play them against each other, they're fine because they're all bad. So it's 4 bad decks just doing bad deck stuff. But like as soon as you're like, hey, how do I make this better? Oh, I can't, because I can only add madness cards to it, and madness cards suck. they're 5-mana spells that I can play for 2 mana, and they're like, destroy a tapped non-black, non-artifact, non-white creature. But it's 2 mana instead of 5 if you do all the work to discard it. Like,
Jake, does this mean anything to you? You never play Commander with me?
Yeah, I don't know much about Commander. I've played with other people's decks. I mean, I've bought the Commander decks as they come out, though. Most of them.
Wait,
because
really?
I give them as gifts to my nephews.
Oh, okay.
Which is great, because now it's 6 months from Christmas instead of doing them in October like they used to. That was another thing that pissed me off.
Yeah, I sent them up there for Christmas like the last few years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I definitely liked them more. I liked them more in November
so
than I liked them in
that's my involvement
August.
with the Commander sets.
So, like, I really spent the last year sticking up for him. I'm like, look, I realized that people were a little disappointed with Commander 2018, which I liked. But don't worry, they heard our concerns, and they're gonna,
Well, look, man, we said this on the cast a week or two ago, and the one, pushback I'll give you here is that they did hit a lot of cards that would have been expensive in the next year or two if they were not reprinted here.
Yeah, no, we talked all about that. I've just been getting increasingly pissed off over the last couple of weeks. And I wrote an article called In Defense of Just Buying the Things, where I said, hey, look, yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff could recover. They spread the value out a lot. And I think if you reprint some $3 cards and they go to $1, they're not going to go back to $3. So I think it's going to be tougher to rebound versus you could put a $20 card in the deck, and they put $20 cards in the decks when they were $5 cheaper. So I don't know how they can't justify jamming something decent. Like the highest value reprint was like $8. So like, I don't know what they're thinking.
Well, they're thinking that, I mean, it's also like possible that this is a relatively, I mean, maybe not new is not the right word, certainly now, but when you're talking about when they put like Wormcoil or whatever in 2016 or whatever it was, like they'd only had a couple years of data at that point. If the vast majority of the people actually buying these decks are new players, then they're not for the enfranchised player. That's fine, right? Like, getting more people.
I'm realizing that this is not for me.
Yeah, and it's possible. I think it's possible that it was never meant to be for you, and they are just now making it properly.
But they could have done absolutely nothing to hurt new players and still making franchise players happy.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to get on here
in the stupid deck, and I would have liked it, but they took Kaikar out and threw it in the core set.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to say that they shouldn't have that they couldn't have thrown in. I think they should target. I think they should target a $15 to $20 reprint in each of the decks every year. Like, I think that's a completely reasonable thing for them to do,
and the
gives,
card's price would recover. Nobody would be mad.
No one would care. No one would care, but some people would be happy.
Yeah,
I think it's.
And I've said that to Gavin. He knows I said that.
Cards every single year, so that they just like plummet in value over the course of 3 years.
I don't need a Darkwater goddamn Catacombs.
we're never getting.
I still have mine from when I was playing that set.
We're never getting Cyclonic Rift again, unless it comes in a core set or a Battle Bond or something, right? Like. That card's dead now. That card is unreprintable.
We're never even getting to Fairy's Protection, where a card's accidentally a little better than we thought.
Yeah.
Like, the number one card is that land that lets you put your commander back in your hand. That one, till 11.
Oh, yeah.
That's, the most expensive card right now.
Yeah, we'll see. Either way, I'm glad people enjoyed it. I mean, look, at the end of the day, people only... I can't speak, I guess, entirely to new players, but at least regulars at the store, even when they buy them... They take them apart within a couple months, and they just look at it as a way to replenish their soul rings and add in some new cards. I think it's kind of people enjoy the pre-release events for them that most stores put on. It's a thing, right? It's a reset for a lot of their play groups.
I mean,
and that's all fine. It all serves a lot of purposes.
For my nephews, it's like having board games. Like, they have them all the decks still together. Yeah. And
that's great.
We just pick decks kind of at random, and then play, and they're terrible, so I win every time.
Yeah, get them. Pretty soon you're going to be an old dad, and you're going to lose to the kids at every game.
It's possible.
All right, let's move on before we get out of here this week. Let's do Pick of the Week. Pick of the Week. Pick of the Week. Pick of the Week. Time
time for the pick of the week.
And why don't we let the guests go first? Jake, you want to do the honors here?
Yes, I'm gonna go with a weird one. I'm gonna go with Smuggler's Copter.
Ooh.
The copter.
Yeah. I feel like it's a card that I mean, it's really powerful for its cost. Like, it got banned in Standard, and it deservedly so got banned there. I think Stoneforge Mystic, gets better alongside Smuggler's Copter. I think a lot of the cards that you want to be playing with Stoneforge Mystic are cards that you generally just want to be playing with Copter. I think that getting to search up like excess copies of like Batter Skulls, so you don't have to play like other worse equipment, like pitching it. That's powerful. It works well with Lingering Souls, Bitter Blossom, all those good cards.
Also gives your Stoneforge something to do after you put in your Batter Skull or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
King Crew the Copter. I love Copter in Modern. The card's great.
Yeah, it always felt like just like a little small, but like, yeah, having a Batter Skull on it, making it vigilant seems.
Yeah, that's a nice way to do something in the late game if you have all that together.
If you have enough creatures to crew it on their turn too.
It's a pretty fast clock, like, surprisingly, and it like finds you cards. Like it's a card that if you're gonna play like a Naya deck with Stoneforge, like, it works really nicely with Wrenn and 6. Just like, just pitching lands that you're returning from your graveyard, drawing extra cards, having a 3/3 flying that you paid 2 mana for. Like, all those things are good.
Yeah. All right, Jason, what do you got?
Mine is on the basis of commander decks, which I don't like.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the Naya deck, but apparently everybody but me is. If you go to EDH Rec and you look at the top commanders of the week, which is something I do every week in my article, it's changing. And until last week, it was like Kaikar, Yarak, and Yawgmoth were in like the top 5, and Golos, were like everybody was building. But finally, some Commander 2019 stuff is starting to break in. Angie Falconwrath is the number 1 played card as of Tuesday. Carrick's number 2. Atla Palani's number 3. Garrett is number 4, which surprised me. Because I think a commander that you have to swing with is pretty terrible. But on the basis of like the Naya deck having like tokens and stuff like that, I really kind of like Bramble Sovereign. I said earlier in the episode, I really like Battle Bond stuff. Battle Bond's a set that kind of like is the set I always wanted as an EDH player who likes Two-Headed Giant. It's got stuff for EDH, it's got stuff for Legacy, it's got those lands that Corbin really said, hey, buy these at 5, and we're like, you're an idiot. And look how that turned out. Battle Bond's a set that people have forgotten about. No one's busting that anymore. The decks, the boxes really aren't that expensive relative to the value that's in them. And something like Bramble Sovereign, that was like $17 on Card Kingdom and like 12 elsewhere, sold out for 17 on Card Kingdom, and it's starting to creep up to that on the other side. So if you can get this under $15, absolutely grab Bramble Sovereign. It's just one of those cards that, like, how do you reprint it? Where do you reprint it? Who's opening more Battle Bond? And how good is something like Bramble Sovereign in decks where you want to make tokens? It's in like 40% of Gyra decks already, despite costing half as much as the Precon does as just one single card. It's in almost half of the deck, so it's a very important card, and it goes in more decks than just some of those, like Rolesk is playing it, Trostani, Yarok, Vanifar. Like, a lot of decks are playing this, and some of the older decks are starting to go back and be like, hey, I could benefit from Bramble Sovereign. It's just that good. And it's sold out at Card Kingdom at 17, so if you can buy it for cheaper than that, that's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah. All right, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm actually curious to hear what you guys think. Obviously, with the Stoneforge unbanned, all kinds of stupid stuff is going crazy, but mostly the swords, right? Feast and Famine is probably the best. But one that people haven't talked a ton about, but I think might have probably the largest game potential at this point, a couple days after the ban, as any of them, is Sword of War and Peace. It's got the most relevant protection colors in Modern, of having protection from Path and Lightning Bolt. It does a lot of damage early in the game. It closes games out, and this is a format, like, the Sword of Feast and Famine was always really good, and Legacy because there's so many cantrips, and obviously good in Standard because everything costs just a lot more mana. So your mana, you could pull double duty a lot more. But in Modern, only certain decks can really benefit from the untap in the sense of holding up counter spells or whatever else. But Sword of War and Peace just kills people. And there's a lot of matchups in Modern where you just have to kill them. Like against Tron or whatever, untapping your lands doesn't necessarily do a lot depending on what you have. But, clocking them for 5 or whatever, an extra 5 in 2 turns, that'll kill them. So Sword of War and Peace you can still get right now for $20. And I think that it's just got probably the upside to go to 30. And if you look at all the other swords that have already jumped, Sword of War and Peace has not moved all that much in the couple days here that the others have. Yet I think it may be the one that people end up putting in their sideboard a little more if they main deck Feast and Famine or whatever. So that's what I like looking at right now. Is I think you're probably looking at it going up to 30 or so. So if you are a Stoneforge player out there, this may not be the biggest percentage gainer or whatever, but if you're trying to get into
Wouldn't you
Cobblade
rather not pay an extra $10?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there are lots of cards I could pick that are more likely to double in price or anything like that. But in the interest of people actually trying to play Magic here, I think that's one you may want to keep an eye on. And
I don't even know
now.
though. Because I don't know if that's like a sword worth. That's like, sword number like 4 on like the list of wanting to play them.
Well, it depends,
Really?
right? Because like it's Feast and Famine and War and Peace.
So what are your other 3? Feast and Famine.
It's Fire and Ice and
Feast and Famine,
Fire
Fire
and
and
Ice.
Ice.
But the thing
Light
is,
Shadow?
there's a number of decks in Modern where like
And then
Fire
Light
and Ice
Shadow,
doesn't
yeah.
actually like Fire and Ice and Light and Shadow don't do very much against Tron. Like killing them can be a lot more important than dirtling around with 2 damage.
I just don't think that War and Peace is good against Tron either. I think that like Stoneforge is just too slow against Tron.
Well, sure. I mean,
Right,
I'll give you that. But
I think that
is a matchup that the Stoneforge decks are going to have to play.
yeah, and I think that like your plan in those matchups like should be to like use like Field of Ruins effectively or like Ghost Quarters or to have something else going on. Although like you don't really want to be using Arbiter anymore now that you're playing Stoneforge, depending on what kind of deck you are.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to go with it now.
Yeah, I think that like I just don't know that the way to beat Tron is a sword.
Well,
I think Sword of Dungeons and Dragons, if you are good on your dice rolls, you can
yeah,
get
there.
enough
Now you're
dragons
talking. Now you're talking. Yeah, I mean, look, I think we're likely to see a metagame that where Tron is sort of the de facto boogeyman, and that if you have a bad matchup against it, you kind of just have a bad matchup against it. If you're X Stoneforge deck or whatever that isn't good against it. So you're right. It may be possible people just decide that that's not how they're going to board it all. They're going to board out all their Stoneforges and board in whatever dedicated hate. We'll see how it tends to play out, but regardless, all the swords are going to jump as a result of the Stoneforge unban. And right now, War and Peace, I think, from a price to playability level, is probably the most attractive. Like, yeah, like Fire and Ice and Feast and Famine are great. They've also doubled in price in the past 36 hours. So whereas Feast and Famine War and Peace hasn't moved much at all. But I think it is going to be slower. But I think it's going to get there. I mean, all the swords are going to move.
Yeah, except Body and Mind. So many people.
Wait,
Give them the body and the mind.
You don't want to mill people? What could go wrong?
Here, have 10 cards in your graveyard deck that I could be anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you get a 2/2, man.
Hey, you just milled 2 Phoenixes, idiot. Haven't you heard that card's bad? Oh, Needle Drop? All right, game 2?
Needle Drop. It's a Lava Dart, my man. Come on.
Is that what it is? Whatever, the thing.
I know Needle Drop is a card. No, it's Lava Dart. That's the one where you flash it back
Needle
by
Drop's
sacrificing
the
land.
one for Pauper, right? And Lava Dart's the one that was in Modern Horizons. So,
Correct.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. All right.
I guess I don't know my 1 damage, 1 red.
Answer's always gut
a
shot.
judgment card, right?
Answer's always gut shot.
Well, gut shot you can't play twice, so.
Yeah. All right, everybody. That will do it for us this week. I'm Corbin Hostler. You can find me at chostler88 on Twitter. Jason, where can people find you on the social medias?
Jason E. Alt on Twitter, where I have a pin post that links to all the things I do, such as being a content manager on edhrec.com, writing for Cool Stuff Inc. and mtgprice.com. This podcast and a podcast called Director's Cut on the They Said We Said YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Brainstorm Brewery.
Well, that was actually a really nice outro, Jason, but I do want to shout out our guests again.
Have a good night, guys.
Jake.
That wasn't an outro. I'm just saying thanks for watching.
Yeah, Jake, thank you for coming on the
Jeez.
cast as always, man. We appreciate it. Where can people find you on the internets?
JVLTMS on Twitter, and that's basically it. You can follow me everywhere.
All right, everybody. There you go. I hope we see you at GP Indy for the Brainstorm Brewery party. As always, a thank you to our sponsor, Channel Fireball, also partnering with us on the event in Indianapolis. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see you there. And if you can't make it, we'll miss you, and we'll see you on the podcast next week. Sweet.